In the last video, we took our simple low poly tree and added our displace and decimate modifiers to give it a little bit more interesting look, maybe a little bit more organic. In this video, we want to start the process of exporting this model and then importing it into Unity so we can use it in a game. Now, I'm going to show you two different ways to do that. The first way is fairly quick, and it's the way a lot of assets on the Unity Asset Store are done. The second way is going to take a few more steps, but in my opinion results in a much better looking model with much more interesting colors and textures. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the things we want to do in Unity is reduce the number of game objects that we have. The fewer number of game objects we have, the quicker your computer can draw the frame. Now, it doesn't really necessarily matter as much how many vertices you have or how many faces you have, but the number of game objects is really a slowdown for a computer. So we want to join our tree all into one mesh. We want to take each of these chunks and join it into one tree mesh so that Unity only has to draw one of them. Now, before we do that, we have to deal with our modifiers. We have to apply these modifiers. And the reason we need to do that before we join it is because the scales of each of our objects are different, the settings on our modifiers are different, and if we join it all together, it's just not going to look very good. It's going to change the way it is, or the way it looks. So with each modifier, we could push apply, and we want to do it from top to bottom, because that's the order that Blender is applying them and drawing them on our screen. Now, with a model like this, that's fine. We only have 5, 6, 7 objects. Applying all the modifiers is not too much work. But if you have a larger, more complex model with 10, 15, 20, 50, or 100 objects, applying all the modifiers can take a long time, and you're bound to forget one of them, which can screw it up when you join it all together. So I'll show you a shortcut. I'm gonna press A to select all. Okay, so I've selected everything that's in my scene. And then I'm gonna press Alt-C. And it's gonna bring up this Convert to context menu. And I wanna choose the second option, Mesh from Curve, Meta, Surf, or Text. All right, choose that. You notice that my modifiers went away and they've been applied to all my objects. All right, nice little shortcut. And I now wanna select everything again. And I'm gonna come up to Tools up here. I'm gonna press Join. For some reason, I always forget the shortcut. It's Control J. It's not hard to remember, but I always forget it. We're gonna press Join. And now my object, or my tree, is just one object. No matter what I click on, I highlight my whole tree, it's just one object. But you'll notice that the origin is set here in the leaves, kind of weird and strange. Now that's okay, but typically it's pretty handy to have the origin be the center of the tree or the part of the tree that's gonna touch the ground. Makes things a little bit easier. So to do that, we're gonna press Control A, brings up this apply menu, and we wanna apply the location. I choose that option. The origin is now set as the scene origin is now set as the origin of my mesh. Now, if your tree wasn't centered, you may want to center it and do that over again. If I look over here, my transform, my location is now 0, 0, 0. My rotation is 0, well, I guess negative 0 and 0. But my scale is not 1, 1, 1. And ideally, when we import models into Unity, we want the scale to be 1, 1, 1. Unity likes that a little bit better, makes the transform and the scaling in Unity a little bit easier as well. So we're gonna hit Control A again, and we can apply the scale. You can also apply rotation and scale, which I'm gonna do just to get rid of that negative 0. And you'll see my scale is 1, 1, 1. My rotation's all good to go. Right now, this model can now be imported into Unity, and it'll work pretty well. So make sure your tree is selected, go up to File, Export, and we wanna choose the FBX option. Clicking on that, we come down here on the left, you can see there's a whole bunch of options. The one that I want in this case is this slightly grayed out, hard to read one, is selected objects. I only want to export the objects that are selected. In my scene, I have some lamps and some cameras. I don't need to export those. So I'm gonna do my selected objects, and I'm gonna do this on my desktop. And I'm just gonna call this low poly tree 1. I already have one of those because I've messing around with this. I'm gonna export, and there you go. We've exported. Now we're ready to go into Unity. So I'm going to go to Unity. I've got a blank scene here. And in my project folder, project window, I have a models folder. So I'm going to open that up and then right click in there to import a new asset. I'm going to find that low poly tree, low poly tree 1. You can see I've got some other low poly trees that I've been playing around with. We're going to import that. And there you go. There's our, oh, having a little bit of problems there. There's our tree that we had in Blender is now into Unity. If we look over here in the inspector, we've got the normal transform, mesh filter, mesh render. It's great. What we have here is 2 materials. We got a trunk and leaves. And these correspond to the same materials that we had here in Blender. If I go to my materials tab, you can see my leaves, my trunk. It's the same all the way down to my capitalization error. And this is good and fine. What this allows me to do is I can change my colors in Unity, which is really nice if you want to do some stylized stuff or you didn't get the colors quite right or it didn't import the way you thought it would. But the more materials a scene has, the more materials that a computer has to deal with when it's drawing a frame, the slower it's going to go. So while this works well because you can change the colors in Unity quickly and easily, it's more materials than we need. We could reduce this down to just 1 material. And you'll see some references, if you get out there, you'll see references to texture atlasing, which you can actually combine several objects and use the same material. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just reduce this tree down to 1 material. And that's going to take some extra steps. I'll have to do that in Blender.